Do business, act business. Business
Rice is the most important staple food for about half of the human race. It ranks third after wheat and maize in terms of worldwide production. In Nigeria, the government has actually rolled out policy to see exactly how the rice industry can be encouraged to ensure it's able to satisfy our local consumption as well as exploring the export market. This is Business Matters. You're welcome. My name is Stephen Ipalabo Lawson.
Business
The rice industry has a huge value chain that we can explore, especially with the fact that Nigeria needs to become food secured, and food sufficiency is a very critical aspect of national development. Rice itself is that staple diet that we must get right, especially if we want to be able to feed ourselves satisfactorily. Let's have our business update.
Hey, beautiful, your eyes, your smile are all begging me to take you home tonight. Now reading page 3. Experience unlimited superfast internet access from Entel 4G.
Entel. Live more.
As is our tradition on Business Matters, we invite a distinguished professional in a given field to help us do justice of the topic. And today's topic is Unveiling Opportunities in Agriculture series, Building Sustainable Rice Enterprise. And joining me in the studio is a pure and industrial chemistry graduate of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He is a young individual who is intelligent as well as a man who has explored successfully in the agri-business space. Is an entrepreneur who has over 10 years experience and expertise in QuickBook enterprise management and accounting software. In 2010, he founded NY's Development Company Limited, and in 2016, the company began the production of Primax rice, a high quality and premium parboiled and unpolished rice in Nigeria. I'm talking about no other person than Mr. Jude Elile. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, rice is a very important meal. We all, obviously, in our homes, everybody has at least a plate of rice every day. But we get confused about what parboiled rice is, polished rice is, padding is, this and that. Can you give us a background understanding of all of this before we go into the meat of, or rather, before we go into the rice of the conversation?
Okay, that's nice. Rice of the conversation, indeed. Sincerely, those are terminologies in the industry. First, let's begin with paddy. Paddy is simply the rice seed when it's harvested. It's brownish in nature. Some rice are not brownish, quite all right, but the general paddy we have is brownish in nature. Now, when you get the rice seed, which is the rice paddy, before it is milled or processed into the rice that you presently see, a number of processes are involved. First, it needs to be parboiled, washed and parboiled. After parboiling, is dried. Now, the parboiling process is usually not the same thing as cooking process. It's timed, just about 30 to 35 minutes at a particular temperature. It has to be parboiled. Then after that, it is allowed to soak in the same warm water where it's parboiled for about 12 hours before it's now steamed again and spread to dry. Now, this is using a conventional, not steam parboil process. That's non-techie process. The conventional process that majority of the processors in Nigeria at the present time uses. Now, when the rice is parboiled and dried, after about 2 days, the drying process is complete. There's a particular moisture content that must be attained before you mill. It's usually between 12 to 12.5% moisture content. It mustn't go above that. It may come down a little bit below that, maybe 11.5 or 12 on the point. So when rice is parboiled, dried, and kept at the paddy stage for processing, you say that this is rice paddy that has been parboiled. If it is not parboiled, it's just called paddy on its stems. Now, after the paddy has been parboiled and dried, the next thing is for what you call milling process. Is the milling process. In the course of the milling, a number of processes also are involved. The first in the milling process is dehusking. Rice have a number of parts. The external part that is called the rice husk, the internal part that is like the endosperm, the kernel of the rice, and the brine layer on the rice. So these are the various components that make up the rice. I guess your questions in the future later is going to help us expand it.
I know the botanical name obviously is Orisa sativa. We learned that in Agric when we were in secondary school.
Okay.
And Nigeria has several species or several, however you want to point it out, of rice already in the country. Okay. How many in number and how much do we seem to be?
Okay, a lot of credit to that we'll give to the Nigerian Cereal Research Institute in Niger State, NITA also. They've done a lot of work in that. As of 2019, just before COVID in 2020, when we launched our Primax brand out, got the NAFDAC certification, Nigeria has about 57 brands of rice.
57 brands?
57 as of then. I think about 5 more has been released. Let me just point out a few. The common one the most popular presently is Faro 44. Faro 44 is a medium, sometimes some people call it short grain rice, short grain medium range rice that you generally buy in the market. There are other species of rice like the Ofada is much shorter, and there's Nerica, there is Faro 52, and there is Faro 46. The species we are specialized in are the Faro 44 and what you call Faro 52. In the eastern part of Nigeria, the Faro 52 is usually called the max rice because it takes a longer time to get to its maturity. So there are several other rice between these that we have in the country. Some of the advantages that the Faro 44 has, that is something called the iron toxicity resistant. Faro 44 is one of the rice that you can plant in an environment where there is iron 2, iron 3. It will resist absorbing that particular iron poison into itself. And then the max rice itself, which is Faro 52, is also the type of rice that, though it takes a longer time to get to maturity, about 6 months, Faro 44 takes 4 months plus, but the max rice have this longer stay after cook quality more than every other rice species that we have, at least in the course of our research.
Now, talking about the business of rice, if one wants to establish a successful rice enterprise, what are the value chains that you have to look at? Where are the opportunities that you need to explore?
Okay, sincerely speaking, every agro item, beginning from maize, cassava, rice, wheat, they all have value chains. Now, for rice specifically, the value chains in rice vary, but the specific, or what we call the main core value chains that you can talk about in rice, begin from cultivation. Mind you, if you're going to cultivation now, well, you may start small, but you should aim at mechanized cultivation if you really want to get a lot out of it in a short time. Cultivation, then what we call aggregation is the second stage after cultivation. Aggregation and warehousing. The cultivation, everyone knows. You plant rice, you prepare the ground, you plant rice over a space of land, measured in acres or measured in hectares, as the case may be. After cultivation, after the harvest is done, there are those who are called aggregators or warehouses. They come to the farmers and buy, then aggregate them from different farms, species by species, whatever the case is, then store them. So you have cultivation, aggregation / warehousing after that part. Then you have processing. After the aggregation, you have processing. After the processing, you have those whose job are basically distribution, you have wholesalers, then you have the consumers. Now, in the part we play majorly, we play a little bit in the cultivation just for control purposes, because we are out to create impact in the rice value chain. We are not only overly concerned about just selling rice. We want to be able to sell a particular brand of rice, quality brand of rice to the Nigerian populace at a given time continuously.
Now, I know, for example, if you go into the market, for Itumota, I want to mention, there are people who bag this rice, and they're into different kinds of bags.
Okay.
People say that a lot of that bag is not actually truly the same quantity that is in that bag that you buy. You want to throw a little bit light on that?
Well, that is the thing a marketing MD, a marketing company of ours, the MD says is the conspiracy against rice. Yes, truly, I have evidence actually. It's not Idumota, Ido precisely.
Ido, pardon me.
Talk of Ido or talk of Daliko, for example. In those places, sometimes we've been there just to carry out research. You will see some of this small good rice imported. These sellers will open the bags, buy some other branded bags, which I wouldn't want to mention their names, and the known brand bags, transfer the rice from this rice that were imported into those bags. Now, the one I witnessed, I have evidence of that particular one, they would transfer 5 pints into a 25 kg bag and transfer 10 pints into a 50 kg bag and seal it and call it a 50 kg rice or 25 kg. Now, in order to ascertain what they were doing, I took a short video of what they were doing without them knowing, then got back to our own packaging outlet at down Lekki Scheme 2 and weighed the paint. The paint, it weighs 4.14 kilograms. So if you have 5 paints, you have 20.5 kilograms selling for a 25 kg bag of rice, or you have 41 kilograms selling for a 50 kg.
That is rather shocking. But we're going to go on a short break. As soon as we're back, this conversation continues, especially with the business. Viewers, please stay tuned. We'll be back after this commercial break.
Experience unlimited super-fast internet access from Entel 4G.
Entel. Live more.
Thank you. If you've just joined us, this is Business Matters, and we are looking at unveiling opportunities in agriculture. It's a series we're going to be looking at, especially with agricultural value chain. And today we are focused on building sustainable rice enterprise. And in the studio with me is Mr. Jude Elile. He is the MD of the NY's Development Company Limited. They are the producers of Primax rice, as a matter of fact. And then we're looking at the rice value chain and how much of that it seems to. Now, for a lot of our viewers who are keen on going into this business of rice packaging, on rice opportunities there might be, what does it take to be able to set up a rice business? If I have 100,000, 1 million, 500,000, what should I be looking at?
Okay, I think the very first thing is for you to have a vision of where you want to play in the agro space, especially with regards to rice. You might just get into the sector and believe that everybody eats rice, or majority of the family eats rice once or twice weekly. For that reason, the market is there. Yes,
yeah, there's a huge eat rice every day.
There's a huge market. There's a huge market for rice. But stepping into it as an entrepreneur, whether as a micro business, small or medium enterprise business person, the first thing you really need to get clear is how and where you want to play in terms of vision. Now, after that, it's important for you to also know the value chain you want to play in. So you could decide to start with the cultivation. You could decide to start as an aggregator or warehouser. And then the smallholder processors who don't own the mill. We have a small mill. Other people have larger mills, the case may be. So for somebody who have 500,000, or let's say 1 million naira precisely, which of this value chain will you have a better advantage to play in? Well, it all matters. There's something called leverage. In which of the value chains do you have better leverage, better advantage? If you come from a community where rice is cultivated, for example.
What are those communities in the country?
Okay,
where do we have the rice belt?
Okay, let me start from where we play. In Anambra State, for example, the northern part of Anambra called Okanot, beginning from Achala, Anako, Omo, Ifitogwari, Omasi. These axes have a lot of rice. Not only that, there are still others, like in Zam. In Ebonyi State, you have the Nko, several other places in Ebonyi State that cultivate
In Lagos
rice.
State as well?
In Lagos State, surprisingly, some of the rice species we cultivate, I planted them right here in Lekki and they grew very well.
Fantastic.
They grew very. You just need to know the timeline and how long it takes for that rice. Benue State has rice. Then Burning Kebbi is a very big rice.
Taraba a rice.
Taraba is rice. Is
rice
within the within the rice belt. There's Taraba. There is Niger State. There is Kebbi also there. There is Yola in the rice chain. So, but our research covered from Burning Kebbi, Niger State, Taraba, Benue, Anambra, and Ebonyi.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about the
Okay.
government policy with regards to rice production, especially with the fact that how much of rice do we consume annually and how much does the local enterprises are able to contribute to ensuring that we meet up this rate of consumption?
Okay, according to FAO, as well as the Bureau of Statistics that we have in the country, as at 2020-2021, Nigerian consume about 6.5 million to 6.9 million tons of rice annually. Now, out of that figure, in 2019, KPMG Rice Research Work Review, statistically, Nigerian produces as at then in 2018, about 3.8 million tons. But in 2021, 2022, our production has actually increased. The federal government
great.
has done a lot to about
Great.
4.9 million tons
Okay.
annually. Though that still gives us a gap of about
Shortfall of about,
2.5,
yes.
2.9 million, as the case may be. So it tells us a whole lot. Nigerians generally consume more than we produce, although our production at present is
Do
almost
we have
catching
enough
up.
land to be able to meet up the 6.6 million tons of rice?
Sincerely speaking, I want to agree that we have enough arable land.
So why are
to
we
meet-
not? I mean, insecurity perhaps might be one factor, but which other factor? Funding.
I think if we hinge factors only on insecurity, then we're simply telling ourselves that we're not going to eat or we don't want to eat. Yes, there is insecurity, but there's still a lot of land spaces that we can still use to cultivate rice that I would say are not overly affected by the insecurity factors that we have at present. I think one of the major things is that the people that should play in those industry and play it well are kind of eluding that responsibility or transferring that responsibility to smallholder farmers in the community, I would say.
One of the things I know that you have a background is in enterprise resource planning. How important is this to an MSME,
Yeah.
as the case might be, whether it's a QuickBook software, whatever it is? You want to give us more insight on how that has helped a lot of SMEs to actually access grant?
Okay, sincerely speaking, the enterprise resource planning software, where I have expertise, is just saying what tool do you need to manage your agri business or manage any other business you do. A good
Okay.
example is the QuickBook range of softwares, maybe the QuickBooks desktop versions or the online. It's a software that MSME needs, for example, to manage their sales, manage their accounting process, their inventory, HR management.
It helps them in terms of bookkeeping, because a lot of times we hear
Generally,
that
yes.
one of the downline for most MSMEs is the fact they don't have proper book record culture. Will an ERP help in that?
Yeah,
that
definitely. That's what the software is all about. In fact, the bookkeeping aspect of the ERP software is just about 20%. There's also inventory management. So yes, it helps you absolutely in bookkeeping. You can generate your reports almost instantly if you've done your bookkeeping promptly. Although remember that once the transaction is done, you're supposed to also impute it in the system. You're supposed to impute it. So the ERP software is a very good management software, accounting software, planning software that any MSME should have, even if it's just the smallest version, let's say the QuickBooks Professional or the online Essential.
that gives you an advantage in assessing grants from different development agencies, World Bank,
Yes.
Bank of Industry, and the rest of them.
Sincerely, I want to thank the federal government, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, the federal government, as well as the World Bank. I was able to assess the GEM, the Growth and Employment project of the federal government and the World Bank in 2019. I remember one of the inspector who came from overseas, from Stanford University, one Professor Steve, to check our books. When he realized we were using an ERP software, he was so impressed. He asked different questions. We just generated them in less than 2-3 minutes, and he was so impressed. So In generating grant, definitely any grant you want to generate, everybody would like to know what you've been doing in terms of traction.
Okay.
Can you show us your books? Have you made profit? Have you been making a loss? Do you have a list of customer base? Do you have a list of vendors? Do you have inventory list of what you do? How healthy is this business in terms of what's your balance sheet? What's your PL, profit and loss, cash flow for a given period? All of this information, the ERP software, whether it's an agric business or non-agric business, will help you to generate.
Why is it that the bag of rice is very expensive? One would think that if we produce it locally, we should be able to get it for as low as, what could be responsible for that?
A number of factors, sincerely. The same thing that applies to buying a tin of milk may apply also to a bag of rice, because we have cows in Nigeria. So why is milk rising? So also we have the land and the rice. The issue is there are a lot of inputs that make up this rice. The rice seed is one. The other inputs in terms of fertilizers, herbicides are there in question. Then the farm processes, cultivation, clearing is there, harrowing, the tractors that are required if you're using tractor. If you're not using tractor, you use a lot of manpower to clear the arable land for planting. After planting also, towards the harvest period, you still need to have the rice cut, threshed, then it goes to milling. All of the inputs, the diesel that are required for this, the manpower that are required for the work, payment of staff, and then the very critical one that we are trying to do something about is logistics in terms of commodity delivery and equipment rental. This is a critical part that contributes a whole lot.
So if you had a chance to
cost.
speak to the federal government and let them know that, especially for MSMEs like yourself and a lot of those MSMEs out there, these are the major challenges that can help to drive growth in that space.
A modular machine can do 150 to 180 bags per day, for example. Whereas there are machines, systems that could do up to 3 trailers. Now, if you go into that very large one, you will need
how many-
a large
how many
capital.
trailer?
A trailer has 600 bags of rice.
600 bags of rice?
Yes,
Okay.
it has 600 bags of rice. So if you go into very large capital base rice processing mills, if you go into that, then you will require a lot of maintenance costs. If anything goes wrong, you have issue. But if you have modular processing mills, not only for rice, across the agro space, then you'll be able to set up, let's say, 20, 30 within a state, 15 within state, and they are powered by small amount of energy. If you're using generators, 30 kVA, for example, if you're running solars, you could use 10, 15 kVA solars to power such. So the modular principle is one major principle I think will go a long way. The other one in terms of equipment is what we call cluster sharing principles, cooperative systems. You provide machineries and let the various smallholders access it at different times in order to do their work in particular. The same thing can apply in terms of processing as well.
All right, I want to say a big thank you, Jude. We never have enough time, especially television time flies faster than the oxygen you even breathe sometimes. But thank you very much. You've helped us to understand so much about this rice value chain. I'm very sure the viewers themselves will be reaching out to say exactly how they can get involved in this space, because it's an enterprise aspect, and it's going to help to address not just food issues but of course create jobs as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Hello viewers, this is so much we can take on interview sections. Please just hold on for a moment. After this break, Business Matters continues.
Business matter. Let's talk business. Business matter.
Just as you've heard, the opportunities in the rice space is very huge. There is so much you can take an advantage of. And you realize that without challenges, sometimes the best of us cannot come up. Nigeria has enough to be able to feed itself, and rice is our staple food. We must be able to get it right in terms of policy, partnership, support for MSMEs, grants, as well as machineries to enable the farmers as well as the people who package all of this product to have access and enable that we're able to meet the market demand as well as explore the export market for foreign exchange earnings. There's so much we can bring to you on Business Matters on this week's edition. My name remains Stephen Ipalobo Lawson. Follow us on our social media handles and please reach out to us if you want a particular content or topic to be explored. Until we meet again, bye-bye for now.